all my life, been grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle paid the price. Want a slice, got to roll the dice. That's why all my life, I've been grinding all my life. Look.
Welcome to another episode of JMS. Thank you for listening. I truly appreciate all the positive feedback I've received. If you could do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, it would be greatly appreciated. Today we have a special guest. It's a former player. You probably know by the hat I'm wearing. She doesn't need any introduction. I feel she's going to be the all-time leading scorer at the University of Tennessee. We have Miss Jaida Thomas.
Hello.
Thank you, Jaida.
Of course.
All right. So I'm glad you're doing this, taking the time from a spring break. JMS, I started this podcast is really to shine the light on players, coaches, and educate. That's really what I'm doing. So I appreciate you taking the time.
I'm excited.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So everyone knows Jaida Thomas as the soccer player. Okay. But they don't know what was your true love, your first love. If you could share about that, your early days.
Yeah. Growing up, I mean, both my parents are coaches, were coaches, and they both played basketball. No one played soccer. So growing up, soccer was always the first sport, and basketball was always the first sport, and then soccer kind of came along, and it was always soccer and basketball, and growing up it was always basketball was my favorite, and then be oh, maybe soccer, no, basketball. So it was usually always basketball growing up.
I remember that it was at first basketball, and at some point it switched and it became soccer comes first before basketball. And I remember your dad saying, whatever you did, she's soccer. Do you know when that was, about how old you were when you were okay, I think I'm gonna go the soccer route?
I think it was middle school, around 6th, 7th, 8th grade, especially when the college coaches started coming around. It was okay, maybe I am good at this, because basketball is a little different in recruiting and stuff. And so I don't know, I think that's what kind of switched I guess the recruiting process and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I remember, your dad and mom being basketball junkies. Your mom volleyball, your dad basketball, and we trained in a basketball gym, futsal, and his heart was crushed when it was I think she's gonna go soccer.
Yep.
I always felt the reason you chose that, it was because of the exposure, the surf cups. You mentioned the college recruiting, 7th and 8th grade, started very young.
Yeah.
And I remember when that kind of happened, also credit the environment, the girls, the team. That's what I kind of looked at and said, I think females are more social. So again, what do you think, playing multiple sports as basketball and soccer throughout your whole high school, you're young, elementary, junior high, and high school, you continue playing basketball, even though soccer came first, you still continue because you still love the sport. How do you think basketball helped your game in soccer?
Yeah, I think basketball helped a lot with IQ of the game and seeing different things. It's so similar, especially with just seeing players on the court and then seeing players on the field and then knowing what space to go to in basketball. It's the same in soccer. It's very similar, just different rules and stuff. But I think that's helped me just know how to, I guess, space awareness, IQ. It's just really helped me in areas that I think I also don't even realize it's helped me with, because especially in college, sometimes I see something and it's you saw that, and then another player might not see that because it's oh, I think I got that from basketball. And so just small moments like that. I think basketball's also helped with, fitness. I was always active and doing something, and so that I think is a big role that now I didn't realize how big it played in my youth days. So yeah.
You know, me as a coach, I always believed in multiple sports and playing. Our O1 teams played softball with Reagan,
I remember
Reagan's
that.
dad. We made a team. We actually made teams basketball, and your dad was a coach in our off season because. But I know that it helps players when they play other sports. But you were different. You played basketball at a different level, and you played basketball all the way through. That when I looked at other players, it'd be like, okay, yeah, playing multiple sports might have helped them, but I couldn't pinpoint how. With you, I would see you play, and I'm like, that's a basketball player. And what I mean by that is that whenever we found you on inside the attacking third, and you had defenders on you, it was like if you're backing them up, and you would spin them around and turn and go to the goal. And even other coaches were like, does she play basketball? It's like, yeah, she played basketball. So with you playing so long, I felt like you're unique in putting players on your back. So I do appreciate you sharing that because I do believe kids should play all kinds of sports, whether it's just pickup games. Like you say, you work different muscles. So I do appreciate that. As we talk about your team, youth team. A lot of people know that the 01s were the Trailblazers. It was the first team that was kicks.
Yep.
Just kind of want to see, how do you remember as a little girl how you joined the team?
Yeah, I remember, I don't know like exact details, but I remember Lily's mom told my mom and invited me to like a practice. And I remember going to the practice, at the elementary school, and kind of, I guess, trying out, practicing, and then making the team. And I just remember making the second team, being like, come on, like what? But being able to like learn from that experience as I got older and understand like, sometimes it's not where you start. And I was able to learn a lot through that. But I remember like the people around. I don't remember what drills we were doing or anything, but like it's funny how like I remember the place and what I was doing, and it's just like,
So I remember when Lily's mom, Adrian, she basically said, because I told the players, hey, if you have friends, invite them out. And as you know, it was like there was constantly new players coming. It started with 7 little girls, kicks gold, and then we ended up making kicks white, and then we made it kicks blue because it was like my ministry. So it was like, I want to serve as many players. But here comes a little redhead little girl, and Lily's mom said, Coach, she's an athlete. I saw you, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, you had that competitive. You were upset that you lost the ball. Things that you couldn't teach. So as soon as that practice ended, I met your dad for the first time, and I said, she could be the best player of this team. She has so much raw talent. I said, but she's got to start on the second team because she's got to learn the game. And I remember when you're playing on the second team, I remember the disappointment. Like you were like, I want to play with those girls. And I remember it was like, okay, you got to work on your technical ability. But that experience, a lot of players, Reagan Swindoll, a lot of players started on the second team. Like everybody that came in, it was like, you got to start somewhere to learn the playing style and your technical foundation. So it was, it's fun reminiscing about that. Talking about the team, I think you were around 6 years old at that time. So you graduated with the team. You played from 6. So you must have 1,000 memories. What are some of your fondest memories through that whole youth soccer journey?
I think just like the closeness of our team. I know a lot of people I've met through college that say they didn't have great club experiences with their teammates, but I can never think of just like that chemistry was girls have drama sometimes, but it was never like anything that broke us apart to where it didn't have fun. I think that's something that like I hold on to, and even now like we're still like family and we like remember those days. I think like the card games, we always play cards at the hotel. Just the traveling, maybe taking vans or just being together like in cars for maybe 15 to 20 hours. I think those moments like you can just like not replace, because there was just like quality time that we don't really get to do now because we're like all separated. So I think those moments I remember. And then just like winning, I mean, winning creates good memories too. So I think those are good memories too.
So you mentioned about every team has drama. You didn't ever had drama of breaking up a team. The team, I think no girl ever was like, I'm leaving the team, but y'all had a lot of drama. It was like girls, I always tell this to now, girls are just mean in general. And I remember when they're younger, remember some of the sleepovers, and it became like these two girls are not talking. And I remember a story, we camped out actually in my backyard, and the parents camped out. And so we had goodie tables on the tables, and we had 3-4 tents, and the girls would steal whatever fruit or waters or candy, and the parents are over here. And the next thing you know, a week later, I find out that these two girls were like, well, take it outside. And one girl said, we're already outside. Like, what do you mean take it outside? So I would hear, but I still remember the competitiveness from you from younger. It was like every practice, you wanted to win everything. You didn't want to lose the ball. I remember when Michelle Slater, a player, joined our team. I think it was U9, U10. And I remember that you and her, for some reason, well, you just got after it. And it was like, I love that fire. I love that competitiveness. It started getting where if she took the ball away from you and she turned around, two hands in the back, pushing each other. And it was like, I think that was great. But then once U13 and y'all started maturing more and more, I don't think y'all had a single like incident. But I credit, for me, it's the mandatory bonding events. I don't know if you remember those. Like
at the church.
I would always say it's like we have to have 6 bonding events, whether it's a picnic, whether it's going to movies, whether it's going to main event, whether it's going to a college game, whatever it was, every player had to be there. If a player didn't show up, it didn't count as one of the 6. The reason I did that was because chemistry is so important. I tell this to a lot of players, a lot of teams. You saw our 06s play. You know, that team was like, because I would hear y'all say, oh my God, this team, these little girls. I always say there's a lot more talented teams. But when it came down to U13, U14, y'all were hard to beat because it was a team. Everybody was unselfish. I remember one of the things that you mentioned, college recruiting. 7th and 8th grade, college coaches were inviting y'all to stay. I remember you saying, Coach, I'm gonna be the last one to commit. And I was like, why? Do you remember that?
No.
You said, and I said, why? And you said, it's because the college coaches are coming. I want them to commit, and then I'll commit. I said, Jaida, you're running your journey. Don't worry about everybody else. When it's the right time for you, but you were so unselfish. I would tell people when you basically became that player that could stretch the defense and they doubled and triple teamed you always found a player and it was an easy goal. Then they would mark the other players that allowed you to always. So I think that's the part there that I feel like that team had its growing pains at a younger age. But I remember, because the way you came to the second team, I kind of want to hear from you throughout the whole years that it was an environment where everybody always knew you could move down to the second team. You know, if you remember, Jordan, my own daughter, moved down. If you remember, Lily was going to move down, and she started missing practice on Sundays. And I would say, hey, this is not for everyone. But every new player that came, I never heard y'all didn't welcome them. It always was like, y'all made them feel like family, home. Was that just me looking and say, oh, they're nice girls, or y'all just didn't have the threat? Because to me, I always told you, it's like what you put into it is what you're gonna get out of it. But just through that journey of that competitiveness, I want you to talk more about the environment, daily environment, all the way through at practices that y'all were friends, but come practice. I remember at the hotels, y'all would say Papi Wani, Coach Iwani, but at practice, nobody would dare not take it serious. So kind of like that environment from a youth perspective, being with the team so long, because you hear, or you need to hear another voice. So if you could share just about that, what you most remember about the training environments with your teammates, when like Samantha Mesa joined, when Michelle Slater joined, how did y'all feel as a threat, or did y'all, okay, more competition, let's go?
I think for me, I don't think I saw anyone as a threat. I think when new people would join, I saw it as like opportunity, because I like wanted us to be a good team. And I knew we already were good. And so bringing in people that were good, it was like nice. But at the same time, I remember practices were always very intense, and it was like serious. And that was like, it was almost like that was really our time to get better. Because it's not like we practice every single day. And so sometimes we wouldn't take it as serious, but at the end, back of our minds, like we knew not to mess around either. And so I think that's also a big reason why we were so good, because we like took it serious and we wanted to like be great. Even though sometimes it was like we showed up and it was like we just want to talk and socialize, but we had to remember like we're not trying to get in trouble, so we need to take this serious. But I think it paid off, and as we got older, like we understood it better.
You know, I shared another episode about my philosophy about fun over learning over winning. At the younger age groups, the fun, you know, we're still learning and we're still competing, because I hate to lose, because you hate to lose. And that's why when a player that was a late bloomer or wasn't at the level, my own daughter, I moved her down, because I was like, these girls want to win. He goes, so you saw that whole mentality. And I remember players used to look at our team, parents, I will never join y'all's team because y'all having too much fun. Because the girls were, you remember the Lilies, the Valericas, the Julies, they had that chemistry. They wanted to have fun. And it was a time and a place for everything. At that U9, U8, U10, yes, let's have fun, but you're also learning. If we travel, we're going to take this serious. There's a time. But you talked about wanting to be great. You know, here comes an independent team. You're joining. You're like, okay, you're a basketball player. Then it becomes, oh, now we're getting recruited. Now we're going there. Throughout the years, outside, you probably felt you're not going to be able to compete. You probably felt like you're not going to be able to, because I remember it seemed like everybody had a chip on their shoulder. Like, we're going to show them. You're one of the players that was getting recruited constantly. I know you're not in the youth scene anymore. Now it's out of hand. It's at another level. Right now, if you're a youth player, you could sign an NIL deal at U6. It's crazy. But I remember you as a competitor, you basically one time said, like, I don't want to join them. I want to beat them. And I was like, man, I had never heard that before or since. He goes, but how did that make you feel whenever you worked and you're not going to make it, you're not going to be able to compete? And then all of a sudden you start reaching. And if you remember, we merged the two teams and U13 to make a run at it. So with no ECNL, no DA, all these leagues, y'all became the best team in North Texas. And not only in North Texas, y'all became the best team in the region, because y'all went to regionals and then y'all are in nationals. Now you're playing against the powerhouse teams. But how did that feel from a competitor standpoint? You're going through this journey and people are doubting. You know, if you remember the video, Belerica said, so what's up? You know, how did that make you feel that you finally accomplished that?
I think it was kind of unbelievable, I'd say, because I feel like we would sometimes not get opportunity to play those like bigger teams that might have been ECNL. But when we did get that opportunity, like we knew like we were ready. And we knew we were good.
Yeah.
Like no one had to tell us that. We saw what we could do. And so I think that was like cool. It was like finally everything that we've done, it's like finally showing, and we're going to regionals, and then we're like, okay, we won that, now nationals. And so I think like, I don't know, it makes you feel like accomplished, and it was just exciting. And I think like still to today, like you remember that stuff, that all those times we went to nationals, and the friends you make and that sort of thing. Like it's just really cool to like know like, okay, we did that. And in the moment, like I guess we didn't realize how we knew it was big, but I think now it's like cool to look back and see like it actually was a bigger deal, and especially with the people you do it with.
Yeah. So I'm just telling you, y'all inspired a lot of little girls. A lot of people say you're always talking about the 01s. Funny thing is, I always talk about the process. I always talk about not actually the team, but more I moved this player here, this player came in. I'm always going to do what's best for the team, the training environment, how hard I was on you, on players. If you remember, I would always say 2 things that you could control every player: attitude and effort. You definitely had the effort. You definitely had an attitude. Your attitude was not on the positive side. You were super competitive. But now I feel like as a coach, I feel like coaches can't really be hard on players. They get too sensitive. With you, I remember I would bench you, games when you had bad attitude, when felt like you were uncoachable because I'm trying to coach you and you're thinking, man, I'm getting onto you, but you're upset because you're not having a good game. I don't know if you remember, I would tell you in first half, take off your cleats. You're not playing anymore. And I would say, you're not playing the next game. And your parents would always say, Coach, she's yours. She's yours. So do you remember me being that disciplinarian?
Yes, I do remember. I remember there was one game where it like kind of clicked, but I do remember like being like kind of checked for like my attitude. But because I mean I grew up with my dad being my coach, so I kind of got away with it a little bit, but not really. And then I finally got a like coach I didn't know, and so it's like, oh, he's like dealing with me now. So I do remember those moments of that, because I just remember being mad. And
I remember you being mad and your mom basically thinking, Coach, Jaida feels that you don't like her. And that's where I looked and said, no, you gonna hug me, like worry when I'm not hard on you. But I would say it's like, I'm not gonna let your attitude beat the way of a college coach not wanting you. He goes, I'd rather lose you than not try to help you. And I think now in today's, if you're hard on the player, they take it like you don't like them. I think accountability, I held you accountable.
Yeah.
Nowadays, people say, what? You really did that? You took up their phones?
Oh, yeah.
It was like we would go and say, y'all can't eat this for this tournament. After the tournament, go at it. I think we're missing, now I got back into coaching, first year back, and it is very, very different. It's very different. People are chasing to just win, to just be. And I always tell them, if you trust the process and you get better each day, the retention, the style of play, all this will get you to that point. What do you think about just the style of play that we played the 01s? Because I would always hear, the style of plays. Brazil, I grew up in going to Mexico in 86, the World Cup was going on in Mexico. And so seeing that canary yellow and me being a fan of Pelé, that's how I envisioned soccer should play. I'm not saying it's the only way or the right way, just what I enjoy. But did you see a difference from, whether it was, hey, I'm going to this camp or I'm going now anywhere, our style of play, or what did you most enjoy of our style of play?
Yeah, I think our style of play was very much so possession based, which I liked. you want everyone involved in the game. It wasn't like a one-way back and forth to one player. It was like building out and playing through everybody. And I think that's like how soccer should be played. I mean, that's more fun and more entertaining to watch. But now going into college, like the transition's just so much easier. Like, I'm glad that I'm with a team that wants to play that style too. And so I think that that's really important for just like a development as a kid. And in the long run, I mean, if you want to go to the professionals, like that's the style. And so I think that learning that at a young age is like, it makes that transition that much easier growing up.
Yeah. So talking about college, what was your college experience going through the recruiting process? Now, colleges can't contact players until their junior year, after their junior year. But when you were going through it, it was early. But what was your college experience, and what made you decide on Tennessee?
Yeah, I remember. I mean, obviously, middle school, having like schools and stuff. I remember it being cool at first, and then high school came, and freshman, sophomore, it's like, okay, it's getting kind of stressful, and not like I don't want to talk to these coaches. Like, there's too many of them.
Yeah.
And so I think that rule is like, I'm glad they did that, because I remember the stress of how I felt in that process and it was just overwhelming. But I remember doing like an essay on that in high school, like they should change that, and it's ended up changed now. And so I think that's pretty cool. I remember I talked to Tennessee before I committed to West Virginia. I remember that. And I mean, I went when it was like dead period. No one was on campus. I'm like, oh, this is like, what is this? Like, I had no idea. Football games, like, what is that? And so I remember visiting West Virginia, and obviously I fell in love with that and didn't work out. I decommitted my junior year, which was kind of late, which now that's the normal time now. But back then it's like, oh, you're late. Like you gotta find a school because everyone's already like probably have their classes for the falls. And so it was really stressful, but I just remember obviously I got injured, and then it was like, okay, this is gonna be even harder. And so really just trusting in the Lord in that process. And it was like between two schools, and I was like Tennessee and Villanova. Like, I remember those were like my top two. I didn't know which one I wanted to go to. It was like, do I go to a smaller school, or do I go to this really big school and experience something I've never experienced? Because growing up, I wasn't really like, I was private school, so it was like never huge schools I was in. And so I think I knew Tennessee was the right choice when Coach Pinsky called me and was like, oh yeah, like, we want you. And like, he knew I was injured and everything. It was like, yep, we still want you, and you're a great player. It was like the first phone call we were on, it was like, oh, like, okay. And that just kind of like created like a belief in myself too, like, okay, I can do this. And that's when I really knew it was the right place for me, after that phone call. Yeah.
You talk about the stress, because I remember early on people would say, you're not going to give these girls exposure because nobody knows you, nobody knows the team. But once we started going to regionals, and once we started going to Surf Cups, it seemed like everybody was lined up. And I still remember a lot of coaches, we want Jaida, we want Jaida, we want Jaida. There was the Balericas, the Martas, the Sams, and they were getting a lot, but it was like, and I remember you basically said you wanted a school, and I'm not going to name the school. And that school didn't contact you early on. And you were 7th grade, 8th grade. But when that school started contacting you like freshman year, you were like, nah, you didn't want me. You were like, I was like, Jaida, like, they want you now. They're like, no. Like, do you remember that?
I do. Yeah. I don't even know if I remember them ever contacting me, but I do remember.
Yeah. Well, they were contacting me because they couldn't contact players. They had to go through the coach.
Okay.
So they could not call you Okay, but you could call them and they could pick up the phone.
Okay.
So all these coaches were calling me, and I felt the responsibility, like, I gotta let them know, whatever school it was. So I remember when I was like, what's your list? What's your list? And you basically said, this is my list. And I was like, okay. And so we're going to the showcase, and they were there. And I was like, Jaida wants you, like, she's interested. But they didn't contact you. And all these schools were contacting you, the OUs, the old Mississippi, the Clemsons, everybody. And then when they finally contacted me, we want Jaida to call. Can you get Jaida to call us? I tell Jaida, they want you to call. Like, nah, they didn't want me. They're too late to the party. Like, I was like, Jaida, you're that competitive. Like, I still remember that process. So I'm glad they changed that it doesn't put us in the middle of it, because I probably spend thousands of hours with college coaches. Okay, I'll let them know. I'll let them know. I'll let them know. And what I always heard from the college coaches is like, you're the only one that actually communicates to the players. I'm like, well, this is my first team. Aren't we supposed to do that? But they would tell me, they're like, man, as soon as you tell a player, they contact me. Or they'll tell me, hey, listen, I'm not interested. But I just found it like now they don't contact the college coaches. They go through college coaches to see, hey, we're interested in this player, but they can't contact, they can't communicate. So that part is really come your junior year after, it's free for all. So I'm kind of glad they changed that process. So we starting Tennessee. You start freshman year, you're actually injured. They actually basically say they want you to come in and do surgery there. Can you talk about your injuries, your mindset, the adversity you dealt with from, really your senior year all the way to now?
Yeah. So obviously I tore my ACL. This is my third now, but sophomore year of high school, in basketball, I remember that one pretty well, just because I had like the infection and complications with that, and that was just like a whole process in itself. And then senior year, tore my ACL again in basketball, committed at this point. And I remember Tennessee, like, they're like, we want you to do your surgery here, like, because obviously I could have gone it sooner, but they had to like fill in my holes with the bone marrow, and I had to let it heal for a couple months. And so I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to go back home and do my ACL surgery. But Tennessee was like, nope, like, we'll do it here. And ended up doing that there that summer in July of 2019. And I just remember being very nervous, just because like you're joining a new team, you're injured, no one knows how good you are, no one knows who you are. And so I think that year was a learning process for me. That whole year I was able to really grow closer in the Lord, and really that was like, I think, a game changer for my entire college process. So I'm really thankful for that now, looking back. And then I had like other people in my freshman class. There was a lot of us, and so it was nice having that big class and leaning on those people around me in that season. And then now I'm senior, redshirt senior last year. Last year, I'm ready to be finished this season, go pro, and have all my things lined up. I know what I'm gonna do with my life. And then boom, tore my ACL. Like, first few games. First I started off with shin splints, and then I played at SMU. Everyone came to that game, and then it was like a few weeks later, tore my ACL. That was just like really heartbreaking, I remember. But like, first thing I think is like, what am I gonna do now? Like, do I stay or do I go? It's like, you have no idea what you're gonna do. And so I think this process has been like really hard. And I used my hamstring tendon this time, which is like using a part of your hamstring to replace your ACL. And so it's just like a totally different experience than like my past ACLs. So this process, like with that, has been different as part of rehab. But it's been really cool, like how Tennessee supported me in it, and just the continued belief and investment in me. I think it's just like really awesome because they could easily just say we don't want you, but they like still want me and they're supporting me in this process, which has been awesome.
Well, one of the things I've told you is you're my definition of grit. That book by Angela Duckworth. If you remember, prior to y'all graduating, we read it as a team.
Yep, I remember.
And I basically said it's like if you're passionate, okay, and you persevere for a long time goals, then you have grit. For me, I remember going to visit you in Tennessee because our boys were like 2 hours away.
Yep.
So I went to go visit you, and I remember you were in a wheelchair, and your parents were like, Tennessee's talking about medically retiring, they'll honor the scholarship if you cannot play. But I remember your belief. You were like, I'm going to play. You're like, and you say your faith. You're like, I'm going to play. He goes, then I'm like looking at it saying, okay, yeah, I feel my favorite verse is Jeremiah 29:11. And he goes, then I feel I see you. And he's like, okay, he has plans for you. And I remember not only have you played, how many goals from breaking the Tennessee all-time scoring record?
I think it might be 4 or 5. Can't remember.
So from looking back in there, not only did you play, you went to a different level. And I remember agents were calling me, hey, we want Jaida. And I remember it was like, you were going to get drafted. The injury happens. Immediately I started thinking about Inky Johnson. If you remember, I shared that video for inspiration. It's like, you might have goals and plans, that the Lord has other plans, but I love that you went back to Tennessee. I love that you're still chasing what you want. For me, I tell everybody, don't bet against Jaida. I know her attitude. I know if she believes, her determination. So I'm very proud of you, but I want to talk about your faith, how you said you lean on the Lord your freshman year and through this. And, I'm proud of the woman you become, but just want to talk about that, how, how that's kind of carried you these years and through these trials.
Yeah, I think it's really helped me find my worth and not just soccer, because like soccer is not who I am, it's just what I do. And so I think that sometimes is important to realize your identity, because it can get tied into what you do. And so I think that helped me in my process through college, because realizing like I just play soccer, and I think it's helped me like not take practice seriously, but also at the same time, like don't get so down on yourself because you're not perfect. And I think that just my faith journey through college has really just helped me, like I said, find my worth, my identity, and then just like not having to strive. And that's just something that I feel like I did a lot growing up with playing sports, but I think like understanding like it's not who I am, it's just what I do is a big thing for me, and understanding like the Lord is with me through this entire process, whether that's the low valley or in the high mountain, like he's with me and he's protecting me and guiding me. And I think that that's honestly like what's got me through this journey, because I probably would have quit by now if it wasn't for the Lord, but he's kept me strong. And yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
So what's next for Jaida? Like, what did you major in? What plans do you have? What are you currently doing now? If any volunteer work or, just what's next for Jaida?
Yeah, so I got my undergrad in agricultural leadership, which is basically a big emphasis on leadership. And then I just finished up my master's in management and human resources. And then I'll soon start another master's program this summer. But right now I'm just rehabbing at Tennessee and kind of just getting back to everything. And then I started coaching part-time, which has been really fun with the team in Knoxville. And so that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm really just like investing in the people around me, but also investing in myself, getting more involved in the church because I have so much more time now. And so really just this spring, I'd say like a lot of growing, just getting involved in things. And so I think that's been really fun and I've been enjoying it so far.
So I feel like the Lord's going to call you wherever he's going to call you. Do you feel like you'll stay in Tennessee after, or do you feel like Dallas is home? You know, the Lord's going to put you wherever. He might say, I want you to move out of this country.
Yeah.
But what do you feel your heart's leading you towards?
Yeah, I think right now, obviously I'll be there for the fall playing, hopefully, God willing. But after that, I really want to play pro in the U.S. and the NWSL. And so that's kind of the dream. And hopefully the Lord can help me make that happen. And so I think that would be a big thing. But yeah, I definitely know for sure after I'm done with soccer, I definitely want to move back home to Dallas and definitely for sure. Yeah.
Well, like I said, the Lord has big plans for you. And after your professional career, if you want to coach, you know I'm hiring. I'm hiring. You'll be my best hire. The last question, what advice would you give a little Jaida or players in today's coming up with the amount of opportunity they have because the sport has grown so much?
Yeah, I'd say I always say this, having fun with what you're doing, because if you're not having fun no matter what level you're at, then why are you doing it? So yeah, I'd say continue to have fun, and if you don't have a relationship with Jesus, I'd really suggest it because it'll change your life. And I think having both and using that as your platform is pretty awesome to have. So I'd say having fun and the Lord, I'd say those are my two big things.
Oh, amen. Well, again, Jaida, I truly appreciate you taking the time. I know you leave back to Tennessee on Sunday, or?
Yep, Sunday.
So Sunday.
Yep.
So I totally appreciate it. Again, appreciate everybody tuning in for another episode of JMS, where we want to shine the light on more players, coaches, and just educate to make the game better. Thank you.